Welcome to the CTCL Virtual Days. Thank you for joining us. Today we have representatives from McDaniel College that will be providing you information and also answering any questions that you may have. A few housekeeping announcements before we get started. You can use the Q&A button on your screen to type your questions to our presenters at any time. Your camera and microphone are off, so the panelists cannot see you or hear you. This is also just one of the many different sessions happening, so please be sure to sign up for additional sessions. This is also being recorded and will be available within about a week at the same website where you registered. And now I'd like to turn it over.
Awesome. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Brooke Hain. I'm the Associate Director of Admissions here at McDaniel, and I'm joined by my colleague, Stephanie here, who I will allow to introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Stephanie Staller. I'm the Senior Associate Director of Admission, and so glad you are joining us this afternoon.
Yeah, so I'm going to move over here to a PowerPoint for us to go ahead and get started. Oh, went to the end. There we go. That's
easy. It does that sometimes.
Yeah, so we will start sort of with some basic information, and then we're really going to get into, sort of what McDaniel's academic curriculum looks like, sort of how that makes us different, and we'll make sure to leave plenty of time for your questions as far as things go regarding like social life, application process, that type of thing. Please feel free to type questions into the chat box as we're talking, and we will be happy to sort of weave those answers into our conversation. So in general, we are located in Westminster, Maryland, which is in North Central Maryland. So we have access to both Baltimore and DC, as well as Annapolis. We are located in a suburban area, so you're going to have a lot of green space around you, but again, access into those cities. You're right in the middle of a town, walking distance to downtown. We have 1,800 undergraduate students on campus. Our class sizes average about 15, and then classes are capped at 35. That student to professor ratio is 12:1. You're also going to see us being pretty traditionally residential in that approximately 85% of our students are living on campus. Currently right now, in sort of a COVID world, we are hybrid, and we have 85% of those residential students still living on campus. So that's something that's pretty typical for us. You can head to our website to get like lots of in-depth data regarding different programs that we have, but you'll see here on this slide some of the most popular ones that we offer in business, kinesiology, psychology, education, and business, and then what some of our new majors are. Many of these new majors are programs that we have had on campus for a number of years in the forms of minors or in the forms of concentrations within majors, but they have now been sort of upgraded to that major status. While students are not required to do more than one program, you will find that most McDaniel students end up doing more than one in some capacity, just because of the flexibility of the curriculum and ability to sort of do that. So I'm going to head here to the next slide, and Stephanie's going to talk us through the McDaniel Plan a little bit and sort of how that lends itself to that flexibility in curriculum.
Thanks, Brooke. So as a liberal arts and sciences college, there's always a foundation of curriculum, because we want to make sure that no matter what your actual major, minors, programs of study wind up being at McDaniel, that you really have this foundation of skills that is going to be highly transferable and highly marketable as you go out into the workforce, as well as to help you on that initial stage of graduate or professional school is what you want. So what you will find is our McDaniel Plan, which is the name for our core curriculum, really is identifying what are those skills that we want our students to equip themselves with, because we know from feedback of employers and graduate programs that these are really the things they don't want to nor expect to have to teach these to college graduates. But yet a lot of four-year curriculums don't have the robust nature that our curriculum of the McDaniel Plan does. So What we also wanted the McDaniel plan to entail was to not be one size fits all, because that's not McDaniel. We really like the individuality of our students and want them to be able to have flexibility and decision making about what courses they're taking right away upon their beginnings at McDaniel. So the McDaniel plan, the way it's structured is that there are various categories, and in each of these categories there are specific skills that you will acquire through taking courses that are offered in there, but there could be 30 to 50 different classes that will fulfill that specific category requirement. And that's the flexible nature, and that's something that we're really proud of, because no two students that graduate from McDaniel will have the same core curriculum classes taken to complete their McDaniel plan requirements. However, they will all have completed their McDaniel plan. Now, you can focus a lot of the McDaniel plan on your initial 2 years starting here at McDaniel. Some of it will carry over into your junior, senior year. However, if you really like the opportunity, the McDaniel plan can not only give you these skills we want you to have, but it's also a great way to start exploring the different academic departments that we have here at McDaniel. Because often students come to us with a lot of different mindsets. Some know very certainly what they want to do, others don't have the foggiest idea what they want to do, and the vast majority are somewhere in the middle. They have a couple of different ideas and programs of interest, but they're not really sure how it's all going to kind of come together. So with all of those different mindsets, the McDaniel plan can be a really wonderful way to right away start exploring what you're interested in, but also to allow you to go left and right of that path you're thinking about to really grow a bigger perspective and that big picture that comes with being a college student. So within the McDaniel plan, there's all these wonderful college buzzwords, but what does it really mean? So we want you to have these critical inquiry, critical thinking skills, and you will get these through a multitude of ways. In some ways, it will be through our quantitative reasoning, which is, again, a nice collegiate way of saying problem solving. Are you able to take a problem and work it through step by step? Can you substantiate why you're offering maybe a solution to a problem that isn't a previously known about solution? Scientific inquiry, are you willing to put that little inspector hat on and really look at things from multiple angles and again, be able to digest and process the information that you're looking at? Literary analysis, taking large, substantial amounts of text and getting at the most critical points that the author is really trying to get upon you. Creative expression, being that innovator, being that person who's may suggest something that seems so off the wall, but you know what? They're able to reason through it, they're able to substantiate it, and they're able to offer up something different than maybe what has normally been an offering in that field. Social, cultural, historical understanding. This is really viewing the world through multiple lenses, multicultural, cross-cultural, international, also recognizing, so many different populations of people, both in the United States and outside the United States, and the importance of history and current day events on kind of where we are as a global society. And language. We have a few different world languages here available, but it's one more emphasis on if you want to become multilingual, that's fantastic. We really encourage that. However, not everybody has that inclination. We still want you to explore languages other than English, because we want you to start seeing, again, a greater cultural awareness, especially for people who speak different languages. So we have Chinese, Arabic, French, American Sign Language, and Spanish as all different means for you to be able to start exploring the different languages at McDaniel. And each year, there's going to be certain unique offerings that go with the McDaniel plan. In your typically your freshman fall semester, one of your fall classes will be a first-year seminar course. And this is topically, that runs the range. Most of our academic departments, we typically have about 35 different courses that will be offered to fulfill the first-year seminar requirement. And you can take something in an area of already interest to you, or you can take something different. Trust me, the titles are very different. They're not traditional titles, and that's intentional. We want you to recognize college is different. College is about not putting labels and not putting clear-cut categories on everything, that there's so much fluidity between fields that knowing that right away and taking a class that really embraces that kind of multi-lens angle is really important. So it might be gender, literature, and culture. It might be scientific revolutions. It might be heroes and tyrants. Again, depending on your lens, someone might be a hero or someone might be a tyrant. These are important, just critical thinking and coursework experiences to have right away in your first year at McDaniel, because it really does start to educate you about, it's not us telling you what to think. It's just telling you, you need to think in bigger ways than maybe you have before. But maybe you've already got that way, and that's fantastic. This is just going to further expand upon that. But we really want students to understand the magnitude of this is a whole different learning environment, and growing your perspective is going to be an absolute necessity. And the more we can start it right away as a first-year student, the better. Sophomore year, you're going to have some interdisciplinary curriculum options, which is going to, again, show you the combination of different departments and how they come together at different merge points to really create some really cool classes. And then junior year, very often you've declared your major formally. If you haven't done so by that point, you need to, because we're also making sure this is a 4-year endeavor. But the junior writing is something that you will be taking that is specific to the major you've declared. So your writing as a business major is going to be different than your writing expectation as a biology major, or as a theater major, or as a psychology major. It will vary, and you will be instructed on what the writing expectation is for your specific major. And then as a senior, all of our seniors do a capstone experience. This is a culminating project. It could be a thesis paper. It could be a performance if you're more in the fine and performing arts, or it could be your own student-directed research project and the findings that came from that. But it will be a culminating experience of what these last 3 years of college have been kind of leading you to, and often this kind of springboard about what you're going to go on and do after McDaniel. So these are, again, majority staggered out over your 4-year time, the McDaniel Plan, but it can be really, really helpful for you if you look at it as this could be one further way to make sure that I'm exploring a lot of the different academic possibilities at McDaniel. So you will find that this constitutes about 20 to 25% of the total coursework you'll take at McDaniel will be in the McDaniel Plan. And these are going to be those skills, those soft skills that employers and graduate school programs are really always looking for. And that's how we kind of created this McDaniel Plan, was to make sure that your degree excuse me, has relevance not just immediately after you graduate McDaniel, but 10 years and 15 years into the future, because these core skills will transfer to any profession. There's no profession out there that doesn't actively seek these in new hires. And that is what we wanted all of our students to have, so that their value of McDaniel is not just, again, a short-term one. It's a long-term value for McDaniel. And now I'll pass it over to Brooke.
Yeah. So in conjunction with the McDaniel Plan, we do have another sort of core piece to our academic curriculum, which, there we go, is called the McDaniel Commitment. And so the commitment is a newer part of our curriculum that we've had for the last few years, and is really based around this idea of taking what you're learning in the classroom out into the greater world and making sure that you're getting those experiences and building them during a time that you are a part of a community that feels safe to take a risk and safe to begin exploring some new skills that you haven't had the chance to either explore all yet, or maybe just develop a little bit more fully. So much like the McDaniel Plan having, sort of framework for coursework that you're going to take each year, the commitment does a very similar thing. So it is going to start with the first piece, which is called My Place, with a program that we called McDaniel Local. There are 8 to 9 different sessions throughout the summer. It's 2 days, 1 night. So you'll pick a session to come to campus. And this is not orientation. Orientation happens after move-in. That's all of the like nitty-gritty paperwork sort of stuff. McDaniel Local is really about understanding what community means and beginning to build ties within the Westminster and McDaniel community. So you'll have the chance to meet about 60 other students that will be in the first year class with you. You're going to do some volunteer work with the Boys and Girls Club of Westminster and out at our environmental center, eat dinner at local restaurants, meet the mayor of downtown Westminster, and again, really just begin to feel this sense of home, this sense of place. You will additionally do a 30-minute in-person advising session during McDaniel Local. So you're going to work with an advisor through your entire time at McDaniel. The first year seminar professor you have will be the first advisor you start to work with once you get on campus. But prior to that, you will have the chance to sit down with someone to say, here's where we're sort of at right now. I know exactly what I want. I have absolutely no idea. I know that I want to major in the humanities and I don't know what that looks like. Where do I start? So that you're not having to completely navigate, that first semester of class selection on your own. And you're also not needing to just take a stock sort of list of classes. The second piece of the McDaniel Commitment actually also happens in the first year, and it is a course called My Design. In a traditional year, we would get 6 weeks of winter break, and so students would go home for the first 3, and you'd come back the Monday after New Year's to do the January term class. So there are other options that upperclassmen can take that you will take down the road, but your first year, it's My Design. It's a 3-week class. It's 2 credits, so it's not the traditional 4. You're still getting a break from your normal coursework. But this is really sort of a springboard for the rest of your time at McDaniel. So sitting down and really doing some reflection, how did your first semester go? What went really well? What didn't go as you had thought or as you had planned? Are we still trying to figure out majors? Let's look at different interests and different strengths. Do you know exactly what you want at this point? Then let's start to look at how applying for internships happens or doing different shadowing experiences. So what I really like about it is that it comes to each student where you're at, that it isn't, again, this sort of stock cookie cutter class where everyone's learning the same skills, but it really is looking to mold to what you need at that time. And it doesn't need to be completely academic. So it's also looking to say, what are the social things that you want to do during your time at McDaniel? What are things off campus that you want to do? And knowing that those are going to change over your 4 years, right? Because we are human and that's what happens. But how can we begin to put sort of the landmarks on that map so you know that you're reaching these goals that you hope to do over your 4 years with us? Over the next 2.5 years is where the bulk of the commitment is going to come into play through my experience. We are going to guarantee that all students have at least 2 off-campus learning experiences. You will ultimately choose what you want those to be between internships, off-campus research, study abroad, service learning. That's going to be up to you, but we will make sure that at least 2 of those experiences happen so that, again, you can sort of figure out, maybe it's test driving that actual career or that actual subject matter. Maybe it's knowing, I know that I want to be in the medical field, but I'm not quite sure what type of place I'd like to work in. So I'm going to do an internship with the University of Maryland Medical Center in Baltimore and work in the ER, see if I like that over a January term and go from there. You're going to work with an office on campus that we call the Center for Experience and Opportunity, or the CEO, and they house all things commitment. In that office, they're located right in our student center where everything's going on, but they can always be utilized to help find those different types of experiences, in addition then to employment after graduation. The last piece of the commitment is what we call My Career. And this is really about taking those soft skills that Stephanie was talking about and beginning to connect those dots for life after college. So I will say, as a McDaniel alum, I totally agree with everything Stephanie said, in that you're going to learn these soft skills that employers are looking for just by rote of the classes and the curriculum you're taking. You take My Career in either the second semester junior or first semester senior year. So it's not the very end. It's still some time to cultivate those skills. And I think what this class does is gives you the chance to figure out how to begin utilizing those soft skills. I think there's very much this conversation around, we leave high school and it's mostly very exciting, right? That is an exciting time. It might be a little anxiety inducing, a little fearful, it's something new, but you know you're going to school and that's something you've been doing. Then we have this storyline of graduating from college and it's, oh my goodness, what do I do? And now I'm graduating from college and I've never not been in school and I have no idea, and I put my hands up and wave the white flag. And I think what My Career does is help students to realize and understand their potential for life after college, and understand that you are intelligent, you do have the skills, you've done all of these things, we just need to learn how to apply them in a new way. And again, gives you the chance to do that before you're actually leaving campus. It's not the very last semester where we're wrapping things up in a bow, pushing you out the door and saying, good luck, we know that you have everything you need. It's still giving you some time so that as you go through those skills, if you go, this is something I'm still feeling a little weak on, and it's something that I want to work on, you're in a community that can help do that with you and for you, that you're not doing that completely on your own. So truly, the commitment, plays in tandem with that academic core piece, and is allowing you to, through both of them, understand the core value of the liberal arts, be able to become an expert within your field, and then to also understand how that's utilized outside of the classroom. In addition then to obviously this type of learning, we do have out of classroom learning. I have some fast facts here on the next slide. I'm going to bump it back to Stephanie to sort of talk about student makeup, clubs, organizations, that type of thing.
Yeah, student engagement is definitely a big part of McDaniel. So we are, as Brooke mentioned at the beginning, we're in North Central Maryland, which is about 35 miles northwest of Baltimore. We're about, 60 plus miles directly north of Washington, D.C. This past 2 years, we've actually had record-breaking freshman classes, and in both of these record-breaking freshman classes, we've had more than 50% of our new students identify as something other than white, and that is a huge, decades-long endeavor of the college to continue to diversify through cultural identification, the campus composition. So I think overall, we haven't gotten the most updated numbers based on this year's first year class, but I'd hazard we're about 40% overall student of color population here at McDaniel. And we have average GPA. We are a test optional school. We've been test optional for about a dozen years, so SATs, ACTs have never been a factor for us. So when we talk about averages, it's very often surrounding high school GPA, curriculum taken, things along those lines. So as you can see, our average admitted student GPA is about a 3.5 weighted. We have about 140 plus full-time faculty members at McDaniel, with the majority, 96% in fact, who hold the highest degree possible within their field. And as far as involvements on campus, we're 24 varsity sports at the Division III level. We compete in the Centennial Conference. We have both theater and music performance ensembles, and we have about 80 clubs and organizations that you can participate in. We have an Office of Student Engagement. They are in the same suite as that CEO, that Center for Experience and Opportunity that Brooke mentioned. We also have an Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. They're all situated in the same location because those are the three most primary student-centered or facilitators really on our campus for all the different things that we do as a college community. And we're overall about 32 US states represented. From this first year class that just arrived, it's about 17 or so students. I'd say if you pretty much drew from Connecticut to North Carolina, that is where the majority of our out-of-state population demographic is going to come from. But then we get the handful from Texas, or the handful from the Pacific Northwest, or California, or Hawaii, or, and then obviously we have an international population. And we have some Americans who've just never lived in the United States because their parents have been military or Department of Defense or State Department, many different roles, but they all kind of come together here on this campus community. And what's wonderful is these aren't just statistics that we tout in these events. These are actual people you're going to meet. They're people you're going to take classes with. They're people you're going to, live with in the dormitories. So it's really fantastic that for a 1,800 student population, we are very heterogeneous, that we do not want our student population to just all be little cookie cutters of one another, because you don't learn from that and you don't grow as a human being. And it's really nice that our student profile is very reflective of that diversity and all the different outreaches that we've done to make sure that our student organizations and involvements reflect the interest and the varied interests of our students that come in.
Yeah, I'd say, just to sort of piggyback off of that, we're also about 50-50 men and women identifying students for those who choose to report and identify. And that's pretty uncommon for higher education these days. It's usually more like 70% women, 30% men. And I think one of the things that I've always loved, both as a student and then certainly the reason I came back to work professionally, is that McDaniel is sort of this microcosm of what the greater world looks like. And at 1,800 students, you are going to need to interact with people who are different than you are. I think it's very easy, maybe those of you who are here because you want a small school. Maybe you're here because you're still trying to figure that out. I think one of the things that is great about a small school socially is that you aren't going to know everybody but you're going to recognize everybody's face. You're going to feel like you have a sense of place on campus, and you are going to need to interact with people differently from you versus a bigger campus where it can be very easy to just find the people that look like you and have the same experiences as you in order to find something, right? You really do see students from all different backgrounds on campus really engaging with one another. We do still have some time left. I am going to go ahead and start to talk about application process a little bit. If you guys do have questions about anything that Stephanie and I just talked about, or if there's something that we didn't bring up that you are curious to learn more about, please feel free to type it in that chat. Steph will monitor that as I talk about application stuff. As far as application process goes, you're going to see that ours is pretty straightforward, pretty simple. Ultimately, we want to make this process, at least from our end, as stress-free as we sort of can, and keep the ball in your court as much as possible. So you are going to see us on the Common App as well as our own application. It doesn't matter to us which one you do. So if you are, for example, going to apply to 10 schools, 8 of them are Common App, go ahead and do the Common App. If it's the opposite of that, go do the McDaniel application. They're pretty comparable in terms of the types of information they're going to ask you. The only material that we need in addition to the application itself to complete that is your official high school transcript sent by your counselor. Like Steph mentioned, really what we're looking for on that transcript is twofold. First, we're looking at your GPA. If you do have a weighted GPA, we will take a look at that to take into account that rigor, but really to see, how have you been doing with the high school curriculum that you're offered? Our average GPA sort of range is a 3.2 to a 3.8 as far as admission. And then we'll also look at the rigor. So are you taking honors, AP, IB, dual enrollment? You're doing an early release for an internship. You do not need to have done all of those things, but what do you have access to at your high school? And if high school's been going really well for you, then how have you continued to challenge yourself? Vice versa, if there was an adjustment period for you for a year for a specific subject, have you put the work in? Did you recognize that? And we can see that that has an upward trend over the course of time. The essay then is just going to be the essay that's part of the application itself. There's no additional supplemental essays. My biggest advice for those of you, if you're still sort of working on it or tweaking it, write about something you really like. Please don't feel like you need to tell me what you think that we want to hear as admissions counselors. Certainly, if you've had some of those experiences, you went on the mission trip and the light bulb went off about how you want to help people and you want to tell us about that. That's great and you totally should. But if you're someone sitting there going, I don't feel like I've had any of those light bulb experiences, I don't really know, you really just want to tell me why you thought the new live action Mulan is not nearly as good as the animated one, then that's what you should talk about, right? Like that's what's going to help me to understand who you are as a person and allow us to get to know one another. 50% of what we're looking for is that content, what can you tell me something? The other 50% is writing ability. So are your writing skills where I would expect them to be based on the level of English classes you've taken in high school and the grades that you've gotten within those? As Stephanie mentioned, we're test optional. So if you did or will have the chance to take a test and you feel really excited about those scores, you want to shout them from the rooftops and show them to me, go ahead and send them. If you do not feel that way in any way, don't. It's not going to be a detriment to you to not send them. They can be helpful if you consider yourself to be a student who doesn't always show in the classroom but does take a test really well, then they can be helpful. Otherwise, they tend to just sort of reinforce what we already know to be true. We don't have an application fee, so you don't need to worry about that piece either. And then activities, we're just going to look at the activities resume on the Common App, or you could upload your own resume. And really what I want to see is that you understand how to be involved in community, knowing that that looks different for every student based on where you're living, based on what your home situation is, based on what your interests and what you do in school. So that may be that you are in 15 different school clubs and that you're on the exec board of 4. It may be that you're in one club and then you work a part-time job 30 hours a week to help support your family. That may be that you run a couple of your own businesses, mowing lawns and pet sitting and babysitting. It doesn't matter to me what it looks like. Mostly I just want to see that you are doing more than going to school, doing homework, doing a sports practice, and like getting on TikTok, that there's something in between there that we are working with community in some way. You're going to hear, if you haven't already, the word holistic thrown around a lot in the college application process, particularly if you're looking at schools like McDaniel or other CTCL schools. To us, what holistic really means is that each of those things I just mentioned are a puzzle piece that sort of represent who you are. How do all of those puzzle pieces fit together and rely on one another to create that full picture, versus it being looking at those different categories as check boxes that I'm going down a list. It's not sort of in a column like that. It does all feed upon one another so that we can get a full look at students. At McDaniel, we're going to work with you in terms of the admissions office based on where you go to high school. So you will be working with a counselor who knows the area that you're from or knows the high school that you're from and understands what you have access to and what sort of the norm for that area. And that's something that you can continue to engage with us in conversation over the next year or two, depending on whether you're a junior or a senior or whatnot. So that's sort of our application process in a nutshell. I saw maybe one question come through, but were you able to answer that?
I did answer it, but it brought up kind of a good point.
Cool.
The question somebody asked was about our honors program consideration. So with regard to like application deadlines, just so that you better understand kind of how we work at McDaniel, we do have an early decision deadline. Now that's a binding deadline. Brooke and I would be the first to say, we don't tend to recommend that to a student unless a student says to us, I love McDaniel, I've been to visit McDaniel, everything I've ever done related to McDaniel, this is my top choice. Then we will happily talk to you about the nature of what an early decision is. However, most students are not yet ready to fully commit to a college by October, November of their senior year, because many families, especially our families, need financial information before they can make a final decision. And you often won't have that from all your respective school options until February, March, April. So with that in mind, making the decision, oh yes, that's the school I want to go to. And if, you know, no matter what, even financially, I know I still want to go there. For most students, that's not, they don't have that kind of flexibility. They have to say, I need to apply to a lot of schools and I have to wait and get that information back. We also have 2 early action deadlines, and those are typically what we would recommend to a lot of our families. The reason we have 2 is we used to have 1 and it was really remarkable, a lot of work. So we decided to split it up. So we have a November 15th early action 1, and then we have a December 15th early action 2. Truly no preference as to which one you do. Then we have regular decision, which happens in the springtime. So often with regular decision, it's more of a, if people find us late in the process and, you know, don't find us till after their winter break and they're like, now I want to apply, no problem, you'll be part of regular decision. Or perhaps high school didn't start out as strongly as you'd hope, but you know what, it's really turning on the afterburners by that junior year and into senior year, and you want to be able to show first semester senior year grades. Those often are not happening until January, so you may elect to wait to apply later because you want to wait until those most up-to-date senior year grades are available. However, if high school has been fairly consistent in terms of achievement and everything as far as the application materials that need to get submitted are ready to go, November 15th, December 15th is probably going to be your best bet. Please know that with December 15th, that has an additional deadline with it, and that is if you wish to be considered for our honors program and or the corresponding presidential scholarships that go along with honors program consideration, you have to complete your application no later than December 15th. So for students that do find us late in the process, say in January or February, they are not going to be in consideration for the honors program nor those presidential level scholarships. So in that regard, you definitely have to be very mindful. December 15th, if you are a caliber of student who might be in consideration, excuse me, for honors program, just make sure everything is in by that December 15th deadline. And with each of our deadlines, it's a 3-week turnaround time to get a decision from us. So you're really not going to be waiting long to hear back from us, not just about admission, but also scholarship. We do automatic scholarship, merit scholarship consideration when you apply to McDaniel. and merit scholarship ranges from $15,000 up to $28,000 a year in annually renewable scholarships. I mentioned the presidential scholarships. Those are higher than these merit scholarships, and these can be added on top of a merit scholarship. But merit scholarship consideration happens at early decision, early action, and regular decision deadlines. All of the deadlines get that merit scholarship amount consideration. It's only after the December 15th that no more is there a presidential scholarship consideration that's going to be in the mix. Getting scholarship does not mean you can't get need-based financial aid, and roughly 90+% of our entire enrolled student body are recipients of some kind of financial assistance at McDaniel, whether it's scholarship by itself or it's scholarship with need-based financial aid. Everyone has a little bit of a different financial side of things, but you will know you're out of pocket before you'd have any expectation to make your enrollment decision. Scholarship we will handle in admissions, which is why when you get your acceptance packet from us, it's in the same packet. You get scholarship right there with your acceptance letter. And then you'll just have to wait a little bit of time to get the financial aid. And just so you know, for McDaniel, you just need to do the FAFSA. So when the new FAFSA goes live, this Thursday, for seniors out there, this Thursday, October 1st is when the new FAFSA goes live. And a quick thing, make sure you're doing it for the year you will be a college freshman, because when you go live October 1st with the new FAFSA, there's actually going to be 2 listed. You just want to make sure you select the one based on when you'll actually be a college freshman. So for anyone who's a senior right now, that'd be 2021, 2022. That is actually what's going to be your freshman year of college. So you'll be completing that information, and then you can list up to 10 colleges on your FAFSA to identify, to say, please send my FAFSA information to those respective schools. And then once you save and electronically submit your FAFSA, we will gain that information if and when you're admitted to McDaniel, and then we will process you for further financial aid and send you a financial aid award letter to let you know exactly every item that you are receiving in financial assistance, and to allow you to make your decision about, where you wish to attend college. And also a nice little plug, we do have some virtual visits. Someone asked about visiting. If you're physically not nearby, where you can't get to campus, because we have been open actually for in-person visits since June 15th. Limited numbers because of COVID, but we are actually open for them. However, our typical in-person open houses are now going to be virtual, and we have 4 of them. We have 2 happening October 25th, 26th on that Saturday, Sunday, and then November 7th and 8th, again, another Saturday, Sunday. And these are broken out by academic areas of interest for 3 of the days. So if you're interested in STEM, arts and humanities, the social sciences, they each have their own respective Discover McDaniel Day. And then the 4th one is for more community engagement. You're not really 100% certain of that major, but you'd really just like to find out more about the actual McDaniel community. So we do all of these live, so there won't be a taped open house. It will truly, we're just going to all be tuning in on a Saturday and a Sunday to do a live virtual open house. So if you're interested, just go to our website under admissions, you'll see visit options, and you'll see all your different options. But if you do live or plan to be in the area, we are open for in-person visitors Monday through Friday, as well as most Saturdays.
And to bring both visiting and scholarship stuff together, if you do visit campus either in person or virtually directly through McDaniel, so this isn't something that would count, but if you're like, this sounds really interesting, I want to do something more, I'd say definitely do one of those more department specific programs if you can. That'll give you some new information from what you've heard. But if you do any one of those, you will be, before you complete your application, you will receive a visit grant of $4,000, which is an additional $1,000 per year. So again, virtual visits do count for that, understanding that, it may not be feasible for you to come visit right now with everything going on. But if you do virtual or an in-person visit before completing your application, then you would be eligible for that. So. We do have about 5 minutes. Does anybody have any last minute questions?
I would say, and there was another question actually,
Okay.
Brooke, so if you want to answer, how easy is it to get involved in clubs and organization for a new student?
Mm-hmm. So we do an activities fair typically the 1st or 2nd week of classes, where every club and organization and all the academic departments in a normal year would go out to our quad, and everybody has a table so that you can sort of go out and see what's there. For me personally, as like extroverted as I may seem, when it comes to things like that, I get very introverted. And it was, for me, going to something like that, I was like, there's a lot going on here. But really, I think what it gives you a chance to see is just like what's out there. And if you are the type of person that's like, yeah, I'm here, I want to put my name on every list and I want to show up, you can do that. If you're more the person that just wants to observe and gain information about stuff, you can do that too. But you'll know sort of right away what the different options are for you as far as clubs and Greek life and intramural sports and academic clubs and all of that stuff. The other thing is that you can join a club at any point in time throughout the year. So I know for me in high school, you had a week to sign up for clubs. It was the first week of school and you didn't know what any of the clubs were. And if you didn't sign up, you didn't get to be a part of it. It's like, but I don't know what it is. How am I supposed to be able to do that? And so if it's like February and you see an event that sounds really interesting to you and you go to that club meeting and you really want to join, you can do it at that point. So know that it is also a little bit more of a fluid process than what you may be used to at this point. But at the beginning of the year, and that happens each year, you don't just have to go as a first year student, you'll be able to see, you know, what's out there because new clubs get added every year. So cool. Were there any other questions, Steph?
Yeah, the question was just how accessible, I mean, looking at small colleges, you know, everyone talks about low student to faculty ratio and everything, but how available and accessible are faculty members outside of classroom hours?
Mm-hmm. Many of them live within Westminster and are within walking distance to campus. So some of them really do just live there on campus and are there sort of, you know, whenever. I think even, you know, the ones that do live further away and they're sort of, their set office hours are those 3 hours outside of class, they're still very, very receptive to helping you in whatever way they can, you know, outside of those hours. And I think, you know, some of the way in which I personally experienced that, I ended up majoring in English. I did not take a class with every single professor in the department, but every professor came to every show I was in the theater department, regardless of whether I had class with them. And I think that's the type of commitment that you can sort of expect, is that they, you know, understand that these other things that you're doing outside of your majors are also important to your education and they're important to you, and they want to support you and experience those things with you. But I think that then also spills over into academic life, that you can just pop into a professor's office to say, hey, I want to go over something with you. Do you have time now? Should we set up a time later to pop in and, you know, talk about something you have a commonality with? I had one friend who would always pop into her advisor's office just to talk about new shoes because they both had a thing for shoes. So, you know, it can really be anything, but it is something that's pretty easy to do. And I think our professors are also really receptive to figuring out what are ways in which you like to communicate. So, you know, if obviously it is college, there is sort of this level of professionalism that you're going to learn in terms of communicating via an email and whatnot, but you'll see a lot of other modes that professors will use too, so that if it is, you know, having a group meet for the class, or, you know, the class takes it upon themselves to have a snap group, you know, in order to help one another, that's something you'll see too.
And we have time for one last question. Actually, Brooke, can you also advance the slide to the last one just so they have our contact information?
Yes, thank you for reminding me.
There
we go.
So we have a question actually about what our favorite traditions are at McDaniel, if each of us have a favorite tradition. So if you, do you want to do that one, or you want me to go first? What would you prefer?
You go first.
Okay, and then, all right, and so it's a hard one to choose sometimes. But I like the ringing in of the bell. Mm-hmm. So basically we have this, the bell here on campus, which is kind of in the middle of our campus center area. And on your on move-in day, freshman year, you will ring in on this bell. Like literally every single first year student will ring this bell. It's not just like a ceremonial 5 minutes or whatever. It's truly like this. We're taking video, usually a parent guardian is like taking pictures and all this great stuff. And that is the same processional, though a little bit different, that you will make on your graduation day. So the idea is if you don't ring in, you may not ring out. So we want you to, and it's great because in this year of COVID, we actually got to see people ringing in on video from when they were freshmen, even though we hadn't gotten to see them ringing out.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites too. That's like my sentimental favorite for sure.
Okay. All right. So we are getting ready to, and I saw one student did have a question. I'm just going to write to you because we can actually address that afterwards. And I don't want to get, yep, there we go.
Bumped.
Well, and the question was a private question.
Yeah.
And actually, if I'm Brooke, I'm going to ask you if you want to answer it.
Yeah.
Because it was about inclusion.
Yeah, I can
And
certainly
specifically non-binary. So.
Yeah.
Great.
We're at time now. We'll get cut off, but Ashlyn, I will reach out to you.
Great. Well, thank you so much for all the wonderful information you were able to share. I just want to thank everyone for joining us. When you close this window, there will actually be a quick 4-question survey. We'd appreciate any feedback you can provide. Also, this is just one of the many sessions being hosted, so be sure to sign up for additional sessions. And in about a week, you'll be able to find this session's recording as well as any other sessions that you will be attending. I just want to thank, again, representatives from McDaniel College for all